Good morning, 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning. I'm Phil Williams. This is your call, 0500 909 693, the phone number that gets you on 5 Live this morning. Do we have a long way to go in our attitude towards rape? The charity rape crisis thinks so.
Certainly some practice is improving, but we need resources, certainly, and events like these show that we still have a long way to go.
That was Katie Russell from Rape Crisis talking about George Galloway's remarks, which have attracted heavy criticism from many quarters this morning. The Respect MP posted a video online saying that in some situations, having sex with someone without their consent does not constitute rape. Instead, he said it was an issue of sexual etiquette.
It might be really bad manners not to have tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Do you mind if I do it again?" But whatever else it is not rape.
Are attitudes in the UK outdated when it comes to rape? What do you think? 0500 909 693. Maybe it's a generational thing. Is Mr. Galloway right to start this debate? Or not? Is rape a black and white issue as far as you're concerned, with no room for conjecture? 0500 909 693, the phone number to call. There are a lot of myths surrounding this very sensitive issue. Have we made enough progress in dispelling them? Or do we have a long way to go on our attitude towards rape? I'd love to know what you think about this morning. 0500 909 693. When I tweeted the link to George Galloway's remarks last night, a lot of you were very angry by what you'd heard, so maybe you'd like to vent that on the radio. 0500 909 693. Do we have a long way to go on our attitude towards rape? 6 minutes past 9, Tuesday morning. Phil Williams here with you on 5 Live. It's your call, 0500 909 693. Gets you on the wireless this morning, 0500 909 693. The charity rape crisis says we have a long way to go in our attitude towards rape. Do you agree? This comes in the light of the video posted online by George Galloway, saying that in some circumstances, you don't need to ask permission before you have sex with someone. Instead, he says it's an issue of sexual etiquette. What do you think of those comments? 0500 909 693, the phone number to call. Let's speak to John, first of all. Hello, John.
Oh, hello. Hi.
Thanks for giving us a ring. What would you like to say?
Okay, I'll give you kind of an opinion and my personal perspective to set the ball rolling. I'm someone who, unfortunately, has suffered, been the victim of rape a long time ago in my youth. Also, as it happens, my wife has also been raped in the past. So it's a subject, I've had to deal with it on a personal level. I do have long thought that the language surrounding these issues of sexual misdemeanours are not helpful in a lot of ways. And if George Galloway has done something interesting, it's pointing out this fact that we're using the word rape to cover things, a broad range of things, and the issue, not talking about the particular case, but going from how he's described it, a situation whereby two people have had consensual sex, they've fallen asleep, one has woken up and started having sex with the other one without first saying, "Can I have sex with you again?" Whatever else that is, we shouldn't call that rape. I mean, to be honest, that situation I've just described, I've done that in the past. I've had it done to me in the past.
So someone has had sex...
I haven't always said, "Can we have sex again?"
Someone has had sex with you when you've been asleep?
Someone has started having sex with me, yeah, sure. I mean, if two people have sex, they fall asleep, one of them wakes up first and they still want more, yes, you might find yourself waking up with someone on top of you, if you like. It's happened to me. And
how did you feel at that time?
Well, at that time, it was in the context of a night having sex with somebody, and it was, if I really hadn't wanted to do it, I would have said, "Well, no, I've had enough," sort of thing. But I wasn't. They wanted more. I was woken up by that, and it was down to me. If I really didn't want to, I would have said so. So
you were. I know the point you're making is that you were woken. It was far from your mind. You were fast asleep. But when faced with the option, it was an option that you chose to accept.
That's right. In the instance I'm thinking about, and to be absolutely honest, I've been in that position as well, where we've fallen asleep after having sex. I've woken up first, wanted more, initiated it, and the person with me would then have the option, if they were like saying, no, I've had enough, I want to sleep, well, then they would say that. But I mean, it's like, that doesn't in itself, I think, constitute a major offence. You might say that on each instance, you might actually say, first of all, I'm awake, I want to do it again, would you like to? But I mean, to be honest, that wouldn't always happen.
So I wonder, John, then, if the law, I'm just looking at the law on rape, right? And the part of the law that applies is the Sexual Offences Act 1956. Mm-hmm. Now, it was amended in 1994 to include intercourse of a man with another man without consent. And we also heard, didn't we, from Rape Crisis earlier, that in 91 there was a wording removed which allowed rape within marriage to be made illegal. But having said that, that piece of statute is 1956. Now, I wonder if that is the problem, John, whether you feel that the law needs... Because what you're talking about in a broad umbrella picture is consent, but it's the point at which the consent is obtained, isn't it, that's key? And also, where the onus lies. Does the onus lie on the other person to say no loudly and clearly, or does it lie on the initiator to make sure it's initiated in the right way?
Well, very well put. My legal mind is not so strong. I would simply, the way I'd say, I think in some instances, yeah, if somebody, if you like, put it in the terms of makes a pass, they don't always say, like, okay, I'm going to make a pass at you now. Would you like to go ahead with this sex thing? I mean, you might be together with somebody makes a pass first, and they don't always introduce that pass by saying anything. And it is, I suppose, then down to if the other person is really not interested, they will let that be known. Then, if the first person goes on, that's where the problem starts. But you're not. I wouldn't say that because one hasn't verbally introduced the subject of having sex that is in itself a kind of forceful act. It's putting forward the proposition, really, isn't it?
So when you heard George, as someone who has, and we should reiterate, if you've just joined us, John, who's called us, has been the victim of rape himself, and so has John's wife in separate incidents.
Yep.
When you heard George Galloway's remarks, then what was your instant reaction to what he was saying?
Well, I very much wanted to hear, as always, the broader context. I also wanted to be more clued up on the actual accusations against Assange before I made any judgment. So I very much wanted to respond just to literally what I've heard. And as regards literally what I've heard of George Galloway, I think there was something I felt sympathetic towards in what I heard about him saying that we have got to make some distinctions between, well, suggesting that possibly it's not always useful to use this same word rape in different instances because it seems to be used regarding things covering something from full-on forced assault, such as happened to myself, unfortunately, and this kind of area that he's talking about the thing he was describing, we've been talking about, where two people have had sex and one has woken up before and has initiated a second bout of sex. So my instant reaction was, I'm quite pleased he at least brought that subject up, because my main point is I don't think it's some of the confusion about terms regarding rape does no service to people who've actually been raped.
And that is you, as you told us at the beginning. And without wishing to dig that up for you on national radio, what was are you able to tell us whether in your mind it was a very clear-cut situation about you saying no to someone and someone else ignoring that no?
Yes, this was a person. I was young, I was also very skinny and weak, and this was someone who was much stronger than me, and therefore got what he wanted by use of physical superior strength. I was, trying to get him off, shouting, etc., but unable to, and in a fairly isolated place, there was no one to hear.
And did you pursue that through the law? Was that person prosecuted?
Well, whatever you think of this, no, I didn't. I was in a foreign country. I simply got on a flight the next day and left in a wreck. I never wanted to go there again. I was 18 at the time, incredibly naive. I didn't tell anyone about it for years. No, I didn't do anything, and I've never been back anywhere near that place or since. But it remains in one's experience.
John, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I really much appreciate it. I genuinely mean that. Thank you. 0500 909 693. Our phone number gets you through to 5 Live this morning. It's 9:15. We'll pause there for some travel and we'll speak to Orna.
This is 5 Live Breakfast. Your call.
With Phil Williams this morning at 17 minutes past 9. The charity rape crisis says we have a long way to go in our attitude towards rape. I'd like to know whether you agree. 0500 909 693. The phone number 0500 909 693. This comes in light of a video posted online by George Galloway, who is the Respect MP for Bradford West. And he says that in some circumstances, you don't need to ask permission before you have sex with someone. Instead, he says it's an issue of sexual etiquette. This is what he had to say.
Some people believe that when you go to bed with somebody, take off your clothes and have sex with them and then fall asleep, you're already in the sex game with them. It might be really bad manners not to have tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Do you mind if I do it again?" It might be really sordid and bad sexual etiquette. But whatever else it is not rape. Or you bankrupt the term rape of all meaning.
So those were his words. What do you make of those? 0500 909 693. Mark in Staffordshire. Hi, Mark.
Hi there.
What's your take on this?
Well, I'm sort of a parent of a rape victim. My daughter was raped in her mid-teens by somebody who thought exactly that basically she was there, I'm going to take advantage of her. And the bottom line is, non-consensual sex is rape.
And it's the issue of consent that we're discussing.
Yeah, it's consent. If you're laying in bed with somebody and you have had sex with them, okay, and then you, in the middle of the night or wherever, and they're asleep, unbeknown to them, you are going to start sexual activity with them without their consent. The person is in certain cultures, in certain places. For example, women don't always have the benefit of the word no being used and accepted by the male partner. Okay, or in gay relationships the same. If someone says no, how many guys turn around and say, "Oh well, she meant yes," or "he meant yes"? No. If they say no, they mean no. And if you continue to pursue that, then you are entering into an illegal act of rape.
And in your daughter's circumstances, was that the situation? That how many times did she have to say no, etc., etc.? What were the?
She said no, and he continued. That was exactly it. He continued to carry on, even though...
Was that Mark? Was that within the confines of a relationship, or was this a?
No, that's the worst part of it, which doesn't make it, which potentially some people would say it makes it worse, because they weren't in a relationship, but she was in their house. She was asleep in their house, which therefore, to any normal person, it would be rape. But my point is that regardless of whether or not you are in a relationship or not in a relationship, as far as I'm concerned, the line is pretty straightforward. If somebody you are in a relationship with or not in a relationship with says no, okay, it's no. And if you push that to the point, well, oh no, I thought they meant yes, how stupid are you? In a relationship or not in a relationship, if you go down the route of helping yourself to someone else's body without their consent, you are committing rape. And yes, I agree. It's a very old, outdated law. But we've got lots of old, outdated laws that work perfectly well, and they're there to protect people. They were brought in the very beginning because there was no protection for people. So yes, there's always a period of time where laws need to be reviewed, but we as a society have to accept that non-consensual sex, it doesn't even have to be penetrative sex, foreplay, whatever you want to call it. If you go and do anything without the other person's consent, it's rape.
Well, interestingly, I mean, first of all, I owe everybody an apology because the law that I read out earlier on has been updated. The Sexual Offences Act of 2003 was an act of Parliament that redefined rape. And contrary to what you said there, it does, again, and I apologise, I know it's 9:22 in the morning, but we have to get the terms right if we're going to discuss it. It does specifically refer to penetration, and it does refer to consent, and so it does specifically deal with those issues as part one of the Act.
One thing I would say is that we even as a society and as with young people growing up, it's really, really important that, he does, George Galloway does bring up a valid point about, and he goes on about, bangs on about respect. Well, in relationships, there has to be a level of respect. I was brought up in a household, I was the only boy. I had still have four elder sisters. And there was a big age difference between them. But my parents brought me up to respect women. And respect, and it goes with in the modern age where we're openly about relationships, whether it's gay or straight relationships, there has to be instilled into people a level of respect.
And do you think, Mark, that George Galloway, who is of course a Respect MP, has shown disrespect to women but with these comments?
I think George Galloway has shown a certain. I think what he's trying to say is. My opinion is he's trying to make a point about a case that, quite frankly, as a politician, as he has, he would have been best to not have an opinion. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, but basically, what concerns me is that where MPs or politicians try to manipulate a situation. Now, look. He has shown, in my opinion, disrespect, not just to women, but to everybody. Because, rape crosses gay and straight relationships. And, quite frankly, I think George Galloway this time has really just about lost the plot.
OK, Mark, there we will leave it. Let me talk to Dr Sean Gabb, who's director of the Libertarian Alliance. Do you think he has, in Mark's words, lost the plot?
No, I don't. I agree with George Galloway. Indeed, it's difficult for me to move beyond his actual words. The historic meaning of rape in the English language is sex coerced by violence or threats of violence. Now, I agree that there are some fuzzy edges around that definition, but once you push the definition too far beyond that, you just drain the word of all meaning.
Well, hang on, surely all we need to do is refer to the Sexual Offences Act of 2003 and look at the legal definition, which clearly states consent is required. So you don't believe consent is required then, Doctor? No,
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you can no longer, in an age when the law has been heavily politicised, return to the wording of the law for a common sense definition of any offence. Look, you point to me and say that man over there is a rapist, and I'll think, he is a very dangerous person. But what's being done at the moment is Julian Assange is accused of what no reasonable person would regard as rape. Now, it may well be that... Well,
that's your assumption, isn't it? That's your assumption about a reasonable person. What we know about Mr Assange is that he is wanted for questioning. No charges have been brought, but we're not really discussing that case, are we, Doctor? What we're discussing is the words of George Galloway and whether you believe that we have a long way to go in our attitude towards rape. Charlotte in Essex. Charlotte.
Hello.
Hi, Charlotte.
I've just been listening to the whole of that, and I am absolutely, it's hit me right in my heart, because I was a victim of rape when I was 20, I'm now 25.
Right.
Exactly the same circumstances that we're talking about sleep. I went to sleep, I woke up with someone on top of me, okay? I didn't even have the chance to say no, but after listening to what has just been explained, I'm really sorry, I'm shaking.
It's okay, Charlotte. Listen, take your time. We're in no rush.
Okay. I just think regardless if you sleep in a bed with someone and you're having sex, that session will end. When it ends, it's a separate. Every single incident is separate. Once you have sex, you have sex. When you go to sleep, you're going to sleep. It's the same if someone says, "Oh, let's go out for dinner." We'll go out for dinner, have some food. They have some food, and then all of a sudden they'll start coming on to you, and it's like, well, hold on, aren't we out for dinner? It's a separate entity. If you go to sleep, you go to sleep. And also, how George, what he was saying, I'm so sorry, my heart is just, everything I battled for and I had to go through a court case and I lost it due to the same issues what George is talking about of trying to prove consent. Consent is so hard, but I'm saying if you fall asleep, that is the actions of falling asleep. If you wanted to have sex, you would be awake to have sex. I don't understand this of, oh, let's wake up and, like, if someone responds back to you...
So, Charlotte, can I just ask you, when you became awake and you were aware of someone on top of you...
I pushed him straight off. And I mean, I've changed my life around and now work in the criminal justice system to battle things like this because only 5% of rape victims will even get a chance for it to go to court. It sometimes doesn't even go to court. And it's not even just the victims of rape, it's the families, it's the second victimisation of things. And it's just, you know what, it is so hard to prove. And it is very, very hard due to the law. And I lost actually due to the law. And I mean, it's a very, very hard system, and I call it the conveyor belt of bureaucracy, really. It's all about paperwork. And until George will sit in on many cases where rape is being, decided, then, because every case is very, very different. And I just think how he's saying, like, sexual etiquette, it's got nothing to do about fucking sexual etiquette. Excuse my language, sorry. Just be careful. I understand your emotion at the moment, but obviously we can't have those kind of words at 9:29 on a Tuesday morning. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, I just think it was so rude because if you go to sleep, you go to sleep. You don't go to sleep for someone to have sex with you. I just think he's been so disrespectful, and every time I've listened to him, I don't understand how he's got into politics. Because
Charlotte, let me ask you this: now that you are working within the criminal justice system and you've had this experience, would there be a better way of wording an offence to cover this? Is there a way that the law can support women who've gone through what you've gone through?
Well, it's not just women; it's anybody. I think yes, it would be. It needs to change from how it goes to the police, because the police are the very first point of contact, and when they ask you, obviously, by law, they have to take a statement. When someone is in shock, regardless of what type of crime it is, it's very, very hard to give such a good account, because obviously your emotions are getting away, and it's actually then that's the most pinnacle point of your case, is really what you say at that exact time and moment. And I mean, sometimes people don't even go to the police, so there's so many more cases out there. I'm so upset with George. I don't even know him, but I just thought it was so disrespectful. I think he really needs to sit down and go into some of the court cases and see the actual events rather than just listening to the laws and saying about sexual etiquette, because if you go to sleep, you go to sleep. If you want sex, you'll get up for sex.
Charlotte, thank you for taking the time to give us a call. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Charlotte in Essex, who was the victim of rape and battled through the courts for a year and a half and lost her case. My apologies again to you if you were offended by the language that Charlotte used there. I would hope that you would understand what caused her to use that language, given the trauma that she was trying to describe to you on the wireless this morning. It's 9:30 and it's time for a weather forecast and Jay Wynn. It's your call right now, though. 0500 909 693 is our phone number. The charity rape crisis says we have a long way to go in our attitude towards rape. Do you agree? This comes in the light of a video posted online by George Galloway. Have you seen or heard these comments on 5 Live this morning? He says that in some circumstances, you don't need to ask permission before you have sex with someone. He said, instead, that is just an issue of sexual etiquette. Chris in Manchester, been waiting patiently to talk to us. Thanks for your patience, Chris. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, the reason I called the show was to give my experience as actually I was an accused rapist at the end of last year, beginning of this year.
Right.
And the lady from Rape Crisis made the point that only about 85% of cases are estimated to have been reported to the police.
Yeah.
The solicitor I had for my case made the opposite point, that of the cases that are reported, her view was that 85% of them are false. So here we have a kind of irony that not only are very few cases being reported, but of those that are being reported, they're false accusations.
Is your case resolved now?
Yes, yeah.
Did it go to trial?
No, it didn't. It was dropped immediately. In fact, one of the points I made to your researcher was that when I was arrested, there was no gathering of immediate evidence to say whether there was any validity to this claim that this lady made against me. It must be one of the only cases. It must be one of the only crimes where the police immediately arrest the accused. There is no asking for their side of the opinion. I had evidence on by virtue of mobile phone texts, which was clear that this hadn't happened. 4 or 5 days after the incident, the lady was still interested in getting involved with me. She wanted to repeat the evening and so on and so forth.
Right.
So there's lots of very clear evidence that this could have been put to bed within minutes of me being accused. But actually the system takes over, and the system says you arrest the person immediately. I spent 36 hours in a jail cell.
Can you understand that, though? Because in cases where rape has taken place, that the offender might flee.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. And now, 8 months later, in the cold light of day, I can say, absolutely, there's no other way really of dealing with it. And the purpose of the call was to actually encourage more women to go forward and if they have been raped, to make those complaints to the police. The police were fantastic. They were fantastic for me. I got the impression they made a decision very clearly, quickly in their own mind that I didn't really have a case to answer. And as a result of that, I think that they were fantastic with me. But they also really genuinely supported the potential victim as well, because the process supports the victim. You really don't have any. The police raided my home. They took evidence away. They put me in the back of a locked police car, got me into the cell quickly, didn't interview me until the lady had been examined, and all the evidence they could possibly gather had been gathered.
And in the end, what persuaded them not to push a charge, or was it the woman's decision?
No. The evidence was overwhelmingly. I mean, as I said, I had
the text messages,
hundreds of text messages afterwards. I mean, literally, this lady went a little bit strange, but it was clear what had happened under the circumstances. It wasn't the first time I'd had sex with the lady.
Right.
She wanted, she made numerous requests to repeat it again. She wanted to come round to the house again. So, the police really didn't, and I'm not sure. I think they hinted perhaps she had some previous, but I don't know that for sure.
Right. And the only final question remaining for me, Chris, is how this has affected your attitudes towards sexual relationships now.
Well, that's a great question, because just soon after the event, my mindset was to say, I'm not going to allow this to affect me at all. I'm just going to get on. But actually it has. I mean, even when I made this call to the show, my first reaction was to use a pseudonym so that I'd be a little bit more anonymous. And then I thought to myself, in between the researcher calling me back, I thought, well, that's crazy. I've got nothing to hide. And in fact, my message is to encourage more women to make genuine claims. But people who are working for the benefit of rape victims should also, like Rape Crisis, do a fantastic job. But they should also understand that there are a large number of women out there who are using the criminal justice system process, which is really weighted, in my experience, towards the victim. They're using that as ammunition, knowing full well that it can cause terrible problems for an accused person, wrongly accused,
yeah.
and they are using that in for whatever personal reason they might have to do that.
Chris, thanks for talking to us on 5 Live. Let's speak to Richard in Derby next. Richard.
Yeah, hi.
What's your particular viewpoint on this?
Well, the story, a very brief story I'm going to tell you, is in no way at the scene as a support of Galloway's comments or any other comments, kind of pro or negative. It's just an interesting story I just wanted to throw out there, I suppose, in view of the conversations been going on for people's opinion. I'm 47, so 22 years ago, I started seeing a young girl who was a bit younger than me. She was 19, so she was 4 or 5 years younger than me, and I contrived to get myself in a situation with her where we were alone for a period of time, and my intense express purpose was to have sex with that girl. And despite the fact that she made it clear to me she was not interested in having sex, I used what I would view, and still do view, as persuasive charm to actually make sure that that act occurred. Now, she made it clear she didn't want to.
So can we just clear up persuasive charm? Then what's your view of that?
Well, okay. That's going to sound very trite. I was not aggressive. I was just very persuasive, persistently persuasive.
Flattery, okay? That kind of thing.
Well, yes, and yes, very much. But we moved together, so there was obviously, I don't want to go into detail, but there was a lot of kissing, there was a lot of whatever, and I'm moving the whole thing forward very quickly, in a way that she made it clear she was not comfortable with. Now, the question I wanted to throw out there was, would that now, or then, had she made a complaint, be seen as rape? Now, obviously, I don't know if there's anybody else on the line, or you've got anybody else holding, but, the point of the story is, could that have been seen as rape? Because... So
intercourse took place?
Yes, most definitely.
And what did she say to you afterwards?
She made it clear that it was something she never wanted and she wasn't particularly comfortable with.
And so it didn't happen again?
Pardon?
It didn't happen again?
Yes, it's happened. Over the last 22 years, it's happened quite frequently. We've got 4 children and we're very, very happily married.
Right. I missed that bit, Richard, sorry.
No, I didn't tell you that bit. Okay. That was the punchline, if you like. The point is that... So that was
the start of your marriage? That's how you met your wife?
Effectively. Well, I wouldn't go so. It wasn't how I met her. I'd known her some time before.
Yeah.
And my point is that under different circumstances, I'm guessing that could have been seen as a sexual assault.
Well, have you discussed it with her since?
Oh, no, it was never a massive deal. It was never a massive issue.
No, I just wondered whether, it's clearly been on your mind enough to call us and share it with us. No, I just wondered whether you've ever...
It's been on my mind in terms of my feelings of it, or my guilt feelings of it. I'm just giving you the example of how, in a different situation with a girl with a different sort of approach, who, could have viewed the whole thing very differently, it could have been seen as being... Well, I don't know. I don't know whether it could have been, but that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is put across a perspective to you of, a bloke's persuasive, thinking, well, she does, even though she says she doesn't, she really does. And the girl saying, well, I don't really, but okay, I'll go through with it, and not regretting it, and the relationship developing into a relationship which is going to turn out to be 22 years of very, very happy marriage, very stable marriage. That's the
rape crisis, if they were here now, I don't want to speak for them, but I'm fairly confident they would say no means no.
Well, they probably would, yes. Yes, that's right, and that's the point I'm trying to make. There are, and I'm not trying to say degrees of rape, and I'm not supporting rape in any way, shape or form. I'm putting across a perspective of an individual act which could have been seen, but she didn't see it as, and never did, and has never mentioned it. It had never been a major issue, other than the fact that, well, our first time, I didn't really want to. Do you understand the point I'm trying to make?
Yeah, I understand that what you're telling us is that it's far from black and white in these situations. I think we're hoping to speak to a lawyer, so I'll put your point to a lawyer, Richard, and see what the lawyer might say to us before 10 o'clock. Thanks for taking time to give us a call. 0500 909 693, our phone number here at 5 Live, 0500 909 693. We're discussing George Galloway's remarks made in a video podcast brought to our attention yesterday, where he says in some circumstances you don't need to ask permission before you have sex with someone because you're already in the sex game, as he calls it. He said once you take your clothes off and you're in bed with somebody, you're in the sex game. Instead, he says it's an issue of sexual etiquette. Do you think we have a long way to go in our attitude towards rape in this country? The charity rape crisis says yes, we do. What do you think is what I'd like to know. 0500 909 693, the number to call. Talk to you after Orna. Let's speak to Jane, who's up next. Jane, you support women going through the criminal justice system in rape cases, is that right?
That's right, yes I do.
And what's your experience of their experience, if that makes sense?
Well, obviously, it's very, very difficult to prove in court. It's this element of consent that you keep passing over. A woman has to be able to give consent now. It's not a question of you thinking that she wants to do it. If she's asleep, she can't give you consent. If she's drunk and passed out, she can't give consent. If she's been drugged, she can't give consent. Now, I'm sure you'll say, well, if she's been drugged and somebody has sex with her, that is obviously rape. What's the difference between that and somebody being asleep? It's the same thing. And it's about that, not being able to give consent. And that is where it lies. And that is a very difficult thing to prove, because obviously by what I'm hearing from men coming on your show, nothing is changing. Because men just think that women are there to be used. Because I will ask you this one question. Who wants to have sex with a comatose woman?
Jane,
what is that about?
Jane, I wonder if that's really what some of the men have been saying. I mean, one of the chaps who phoned up, who had been falsely accused of rape, actually said the purpose of his call was to encourage more women to come forward. So that's not a prevailing attitude from the callers we've had on, is it?
You've had a man who said rape is only if it's used with force and violence. That's like, Viking times, when they came over and raped and pillaged. Things have moved on. The law has certainly moved on, but obviously men's attitudes are taking a long time to catch up. They really are.
Jane, stay with us. Dan's on the line. Hi, Dan.
Are you all right?
Yeah, Dan, go on. Explain your point of view.
Yeah, my point of view is that, I have never once ever in my life asked for consent for sex. It's just, the way I see it is, you go with a flow. Not once have I ever said, is it okay that we have sex? Never. We've just got, just gone with a flow. And
have you ever had a situation reverse to that, where a woman has said no to you?
A woman has said no to me? Yeah, of course I have. Yeah, and I've not gone ahead with it. But I've also had situations where, I've not heard fully what the Galloway interview said. I've just caught the back end of it on your show. But I've had a situation, where I've been woken up by, I don't want to be explicit, but female doing certain things, and I've done the same thing myself. I've been, sort of when we've had a night of passion and things like that, and it's sort of carried on. But in no way would I say I'm a rapist. No.
So, Jane, what do you make of that? Because that's the second call that's come through that's made that point, that a man has been woken up by a woman and making it quite clear that she wants to initiate sex. And
a woman can't rape a man. That is the law.
Sure, I know, but I'm not asking you what you make of the law. I'm asking you what you make of that.
Yeah, so a man can wake up and he can decide then whether he wants to carry on or not. If a woman wakes up with a man on top of her, it's gone a bit too far by then, hasn't it?
It doesn't always have to be on top. Do you know what I mean?
Let's not get pedantic and stuff. Let's just stick to what it's about. It's about men taking advantage of women.
Would it not be a sexual assault then? If I woke up to my partner doing certain things to me, is that not a sexual assault on me?
If you then said, no, I don't want this to carry on, and they did carry on, then it would be a sexual assault.
Exactly.
Yes, but if a woman wakes up with a man on top of her and he's already inside her, that is rape, because she hasn't given him consent to get that far.
Jill Sayward is waiting to talk to us. Jill was the victim of a shocking attack, you might recall, in 1986, the Ealing Vicarage rape, and now campaigns for victims' rights. What's your take on what George Galloway's had to say?
I think it's very sad. Sadly, I think it reflects a view that's coming over from the States, and there was a sense for a while that people were beginning to change their attitudes, beginning to actually take rape more seriously, but now we've got the backlash again, and people are undermining it, and we're just doing a full circle on where we were 20 or 30 years ago.
And Julian Young, criminal defence solicitor, is the law adequate now in 2012 to deal with some of the complicated situations that have been put forward to us by our callers this morning?
Yes, I think it is. First of all, I was going to say a woman can rape a man. I'm afraid the young lady who spoke before was wrong. But let's ignore that part. I mean, the whole point of...
Excuse me, that is actually wrong.
Please.
That is wrong, because rape is penetration by a penis. Anything else is sexual assault.
Well,
rape is penetration by a penis, therefore a man can only rape.
There's an academic argument. Well, I won't get involved in the academic argument.
This is the problem. This is the problem.
No, it's not a problem, my dear. Listen, if I can explain. If it's sexual intercourse and the victim doesn't consent and the man doesn't reasonably believe that the woman is consenting, that is rape. And what is more, the man has got to show that he has taken steps to establish whether she has consented. So if, as the young lady quite rightly said, she's comatose, she's drunk, she's unconscious, she's ill or something of that sort, that is not a consent. That is rape. And any other suggestion is medieval in approach, effectively.
Okay.
The law is fairly straightforward, I think. I mean, a man has got to ask for permission. And that you don't assume a permission. A woman may agree once, but want no more because she didn't enjoy it first time round, or something of that sort.
Julian, thank you very much for talking to us. Julian, on criminal defence solicitor. Thanks to Jane, who helps women to progress these cases through the courts, and to Jill Saywood, who now campaigns for victims' rights. Stephen Nolan is standing by to talk to you next on 5 Live. Ellie Oldroyd will be back on 5 Live Breakfast Wednesday morning from 6, and I'll talk